The verse for this morning is Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number 8. Yes? Yes. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamodirayet dharma swadustita pungsam Vishvaksena Kathasayaha Notpadayad Ratim Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam Dharma Swadustatak Pungsam Vishvaksena Kathasayaha Notpadayad Ratim Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam. The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are different occupational activities in terms of man's different conceptions of life. To the gross materialist, who cannot see anything beyond the gross material body, there is nothing beyond the senses. Therefore, his occupational activities are limited to concentrated and extended selfishness. Concentrated selfishness centers around the personal body. This is generally seen amongst the lower animals. Extended selfishness is manifested in human society and centers around family, society, community, nation, and world, with a view to gross bodily comfort. Above these gross materialists are the mental speculators who hover aloft in the mental spheres, and their occupational duties involve making poetry and philosophy or propagating some ism with the same aim of selfishness limited to the body and the mind. But above the body and mind is the dormant spirit soul, whose absence from the body makes the whole range of bodily and mental selfishness completely null and void. But less intelligent people have no information of the needs of the spirit soul. Paragraph. Because foolish people have no information of the soul and how it is beyond the purview of the body and mind, they are not satisfied in the performance of their occupational duties. The question of satisfaction of the self is raised herein. The self is beyond the gross and subtle mind. He is the potent active principle of the body and mind. Without knowing the need of the dormant soul, one cannot be happy simply with emolument of the body and mind. The body and mind are but superfluous outer coverings of the spirit soul. The spirit soul's needs must be fulfilled. Simply by cleansing the cage of the bird, one does not satisfy the bird. One must actually know the needs of the bird himself. Very reasonable. Paragraph. Now comes the $64,000 question. What's the need of the soul? The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. It's very poetic, very nice. That complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. There is a dormant affection for God within everyone, semicolon. Spiritual existence is manifested through the gross body and mind in the form of perverted affection for the gross and subtle matter. Therefore, we have to engage ourselves in occupational engagements that will evoke our divine consciousness. This is possible only by hearing and chanting the divine activities of the Supreme Lord, and any occupational activity which does not help one to achieve attachment for hearing and chanting the transcendental message of Godhead is said herein to be simply a waste of time. This is because other occupational duties, parentheses, whatever ism they may belong to, cannot give liberation to the soul. Even the activities of the Salvationists are considered to be useless because of their failure to pick up the fountainhead of all liberties. The gross materialist can practically see that his material gain is limited only to time and space, either in this world or the other. If he wants to go to Swargaloka, he will find no permanent abode for his hankering soul. The hankering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. While reading purports like this one, I can't help but think of the context in which Srila Prabhupada was writing. He's sitting in this little room in Vrindavan, writing to the world. He has no money. He had to petition people to help him print the book, but he doesn't have money to print the book, but he's writing the book. And the book is for an audience that he doesn't know and they don't know him. He doesn't know his audience. It's important when you're communicating to know the person whom you're communicating with. You know, their sensitivities and sensibilities and what's important to them and what's not important to them, and their value systems and their language and culture and customs. And because different audiences, there's different ways to communicate. So it's like, he is empowered to communicate effectively. Although he was feeling himself not capable of communicating effectively. His humility. And in his humility wasn't just cosmetic, it was profound. I mean, the description of how Prabhupada was living his life in Vrindavan, writing first canto Srimad Bhagavatam, it's quite amazing. Here's two examples, quite amazing examples. There was a sadhu, of whose name I can't remember, who was interviewed along with many other people who were interviewed for Lilamrita. The man, the sadhu, was a Babaji. And he lived not at the Radha temple, but not far from the Radha temple. So an interviewer for Lilamrita, an interviewer came to speak with him. And when the first question, did you have any acquaintance with Srila Prabhupada, the man started to cry. Babaji, just to hear Prabhupada's name. And then, further he went on to say, I lived my whole life, 77 years old. I lived my whole life in Vrindavan. I've never seen anyone do sadhana like this. And then he gave example. Many times in the dead of night, midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard this crying, someone crying, wailing. So I became very curious. So I climbed up a wall, looked over the wall, and there was this devotee on his hands and knees with a broom, sweeping in front of the samadhi and bhajan kutir of Rupa Goswami, calling his name. Hey Rupa, hey Radha Damodar, hey Guru Maharaj, please bestow your blessings upon me so that I can write in such a way that people will understand. And this was a regular thing. The profound humility of this empowered personality opened the door for his empowerment. I mean, he was a gifted writer, no doubt, but he's not just a gifted writer. He's directly empowered. It's very similar to the evening discussions with Queen Kunti. He wasn't in a situation of calamity, but it was a situation of having mission impossible, and he knew it. And yet he petitioned the personality of Godhead with humbleness and sincerity and every day while he's writing what he's writing to an audience that he doesn't know and they don't know him. He's empowered. You can't write stuff like this without that gift. And then go through the language. These are celebrated purports. Those of you that are familiar with the Bhagavatam, the language is celebrated language. I've read this particular purport many times. I've heard it read many times. And the language is it's poetry. I'll just read. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. Now, complete freedom, what does that mean? There's different ideas of what that might mean. And the impersonalist might have their idea. And a Vaishnava doesn't want independent from Krishna. That's not what complete freedom is. But the real complete freedom is feeling oneself fully dependent and not fettered by circumstance, the body and mind. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. That complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. It's poetry. I mean, he could write poetry, but he's just writing the Bhagavatam purport. It's poetry. It's very beautiful. I mean, consider the circumstance and everything. It's really beautiful. No, he's touching the heart of the audience that he doesn't know. After going through the first two paragraphs where there's the body and the mind conception, the isms. And no satisfaction. This word satisfaction goes back to verse number 6. This is verse number 8. And verse number 6 is where we began. Verse number 6 is the first answer, the first part of the first question, answer the first question of the sages, the essence of all Vedic knowledge. Major question. And there's a very direct answer. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojanyati Ashubhak. So the platform of the soul becoming satisfied. Yayatma suprasidati. This is the verse. Savai pungsang parodharmo. Paradharma. And then through paradharma, then the soul can be satisfied. Then here's how the soul cannot be satisfied. Here's another way the soul cannot be satisfied. And it's, the body and the mind. The soul can't be satisfied. And then, people are involved in both. And lauded for their achievements in both. And they're not satisfied. It's called cheating, bluffing. But encouraging people in thisism, thatism, based upon a misconception or limited conception. And then he gives some credit. Some of these philosophers and speculator type people, they may get a hint, a glimmer of light of what lies beyond. But that's it. Without the shelter in the Supreme Person. And then there's the shelter in the Supreme Person. And that can completely satisfy the self. And a sign that one has achieved that is Vishvaksena Kata Ruchi, a taste, an attraction for the topics. It's like one of those kind of new people questions. How do you identify who's self-realized, who's a sadhu? They're like, there's affinity. Take it stronger. They don't do anything else. And anything else, it's no thank you. There's detachment from everything else and attachment to that which is the essence. So that which is the essence doesn't mean I don't do anything, doesn't mean one has to become a mendicant or a sannyasi and that you live your life that way. But it's your duties, because that back to this topic of duties, paradharma is what's one's duty. So one can be engaged in paradharma in any ashram or any varna. And it's not unless you're in this ashram or that varna, you're not eligible. Everyone's eligible. And the spirit, the occupational duty spirit must include attraction for the Vishvaksena Kata. Just like to propagate material civilization, there's programs, like education. Everyone goes to school. You go to school? Of course you go to school. And what's the lesson that you learn at school? The body and the mind, or combination. And it stops there. And then if there's something that doesn't stop there, what does that look like? What's that? So in the Hare Krishna movement, we need training and education. And not just Bhakti Shastri. I mean, Bhakti Shastri. And then, further. I was told, when I was in Houston, I was told that as senior as she is, Guru Bhakti is gone for 6 months in Mayapur studying Bhakti Vaibhav. And anybody that knows Guru Bhakti, she's an elevated Vaishnavi. She's not just older and wiser. She's an elevated Vaishnavi. She's elder and wiser and a very elevated Vaishnavi. Very elevated. So training and education, you're never too old. And training and education doesn't just mean, anyone that knows her, just take her, or anyone else that's an elevated Vaishnava or Vaishnavi, they have character. What about people that get training and education that doesn't have the spiritual dimension? What happens next? Bhakti Shastri. And that's nice. It's more than nice. It's imperative. It's essential. And then? What about qualities of character? Not important, right? Of course it's important. Now, how do you have that education? Well, of course, there's the foundational, Vishvaksena Katha. And then along with Vishvaksena Katha, there's the behavior of those that have that affinity, like Queen Kunti. And I was amazed. I don't know if you caught it, but when at the end of the last part of her life, it's right in Mahabharata, when a decision was made by Dhritarashtra and Gandhari to go to the Himalayas and absorb themselves, particularly Dhritarashtra, because he was a capable person. He wasn't just, he had some problems, in internal problems, ambition and so forth, and attachment to that ambition. He wanted to be the king. But he's a very qualified person on the material side. And then he demonstrated, he became so absorbed in Ashtanga yoga and performing austerities and doing what he did, bathing 3 times a day and da-da-da-da-da. He became so fixed in dhyan portion of the Ashtanga yoga system that his body ignited itself. He didn't set fire to his body. By the fire of his intense meditation, his body ignited. And Gandhari entered that funeral pyre. And you know who else was with them, according to Mahabharata? Kunti. Now, what kind of personality was Kunti? Here's this Dhritarashtra that knew all the diabolical stuff that Duryodhana and his 99 other sons were up to, and his one daughter and her husband. He knew all that stuff. He didn't not know. He knew. And she knew that he knew. But she wasn't like, spit on that guy. Because he did my son's dirty. What's that? What was the character of Queen? So when we hear about the character of these personalities, it's like when Jayadratha when Bhima was going to smash him, Yudhisthira stopped him. He knew. Jayadratha tried to kidnap, and and then the rest that goes along with kidnapping, his wife, and the wife of all 5 brothers. And Bhima was capable of finishing him, and he was ready to finish him. And Yudhisthira stopped him. Spare his life. Really? And knowing that he's going to be in a get-back mood by having his life spared. And sure enough, he did. But, see the character of Yudhisthira. He did not just, got an A in his Bhakti Shastri exam. You follow? Now, where do you get character? How do we, in our Hare Krishna movement, how do we train character? That's a good question. Because we don't have it. Do you learning that in school? No. Did any of us learn that in school? No. And from school, now we have what we have. We have an occupation, and with the occupation, we have an income, and we have a house, and we have a car, we have a bank balance, and we have children, and we do stuff. And here, along comes the Hare Krishna movement. Where's the character part? Please. So part of it comes just from hearing about those that have character. But it's, and that has its potency. It's not, there's a story, but it's more than just a story. There's potency in the Bhagavatam that can empower people to develop character, but some persons pay more attention to the storyline than to the purpose, which is okay. You got to begin somewhere. But it's meant for more than that. And there's power for more than that. But we, followers of our founder Acharya, need to recognize his character and the character of the personalities that he's providing us, the commentary, the translation and commentary of these exalted persons, and learn about them, and learn about the shortcomings of those that miss the message. A little sharing. I've been, my days, plural, have been immersed in preparing for the Thanksgiving retreat. And I'll just share some of what that is about. There's this discussion about one of the classes is about Kuru, as in the person who established Kurukshetra. He established Kurukshetra, and he did X, Y, Z things to establish it. And then, and what was his ancestry? Who is he the son of? And you go back in his ancestry, and there were compromised people. One of those compromised people that's in his ancestry is Chandra. Now, who is Chandra? Chandra was one of the 3 sons of Atri and Anasuya. And Atri and Anasuya, he underwent austerities, and his appeal was to have a powerful son, and all three, Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma, appeared. Which one of us? So he had three sons, partial incarnations of all three, Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. The Shiva partial incarnation, what was his name? Durvasa Muni. And the partial incarnation of Vishnu, Dattatreya. And the partial incarnation of Brahma was Soma or Chandra, partial incarnation. So in the ninth canto, there's the Surya dynasty and there's the Chandra dynasty. The Chandra dynasty comes in through Chandra. But here's how it comes. He was this and that and the other and the other and the other. And he was very proud. And he developed an attraction for the wife of the chief priest of the demigods. Bad stuff. He ran off with Tara, the wife, the beautiful wife. And she was attracted to him because he was very beautiful. And they had children together. And Brihaspati was all upset, and the demigods, there's big conflict. So, there's some dirty stuff. Lack of character from some of this, very important. And there's more, and more examples and more examples. So to hear, but Kuru was the exception. He wasn't mixed. So he did what he did. And there's a whole story of who his mother and father were, and it's just all messy. But, these are elevated persons. So is it possible? The answer is yes. Is it possible to be an elevated person and be messed up? Yes. Does it happen? Yes. Not just like in a storybook, but does it happen here and there? And what's the protection against? The bhakti is the protection. And bhakti isn't just check the box. Put your hand in your bead bag and chant 16 rounds and say Hari Bol. We do those things, but it's more than that, please. And get an A in your Bhakti Shastri. More than that, please. That's good. Keep going. What's the spirit behind the A in Bhakti Shastri? Exemplary life. And what's exemplary life look like? Well, it's not some of this other stuff that does go on. Not just, the ninth canto Bhagavatam. It goes on. And it doesn't have to be something gross. It can be something that's less gross, but, less than what's going to be attractive to Krishna. And how do we get there? Bhakti. Through cultivation and training and education in those ways. So as we're doing, it's this is foundational text. Canto 1, Chapter 2. And then Queen Kunti's prayers. In one sense, elevated, in another sense, elementary. And we're meant to imbibe those messages. And then we have our role models and look up to those role models and model ourselves after the role models and elevate ourselves through that sound vibration and the affinity for the topics of Krishna. This is what Vishvaksena Kata Ruchi. That's the verse. And without it, waste of time. Notpadayad yadira shrama eva hi kevalam. Strong language. Kevalam, it's a strong word, absolutely useless. Woo. There's Kevala Bhakti and there's Shrama Evahi Kevalam. Absolutely useless elevation in the performance of occupational duty that doesn't have this attraction. And the attraction is symptomized by, X, Y, and Z. Affinity for and detachment from. So, and all of us are, let's just say, we're not there yet. We're not there yet is a nice way of saying, there's some other stuff going on. And it may not be, the grosser kind. It can be the lesser than the grosser kind, but something that's not becoming of a Vaishnava. So what to do? Little sprinkling of water to wake up and be more attentive to what the real purpose is, because that's what these verses are describing, the essence of the Vedic knowledge. Occupational duty that has, in its essence, an affinity for the message of the personality of Godhead. That's a litmus test of how well we're doing in our occupational duty. And then there's how well are we doing with the affinity for the message? The message goes in, and the other stuff goes out. The body and mind stuff. And considering in terms of the body and mind stuff. Ourselves and others, who do we aspire to be like? In one sense, it's a small thing. Another thing, it's an essence thing. Okay. Prabhupada, for the end of the purport, even the activities of the salvationists are considered to be useless because of their failure to pick up the fountainhead of all liberties. The gross materialist can practically see that his material gain is limited only to time and space, either in this world or the other. Even if he goes to the Swargaloka, he will find no permanent abode for his hankering soul. The hankering soul must be satisfied. Now this phrase in verse number 6 is Atma Suprasidati, Yena Atma Suprasidati. So one of the desires, one of the inspirations of our founder Acharya was that people should be happy. And they're not happy. They're not happy because they missed the target altogether with their eyes closed. And they're chasing something else. There's exceptions, partial, but largely people are suffering unnecessarily. And an inspiration, sarve sukhi no bhavantu. Everyone should be happy. They're not. Unnecessarily. So do something. And dedicate one's life to that something. And that's the mission of life. So that's an occupational duty. It's what I do. I serve the personality of Godhead in such a way that others will also become happy by my speech and conduct and my life. And the message that I speak and the way that I lead my life as an example type of character and conduct. Now, those are high words, but that's life. That's what we're being invited into, that realm. And it's, it's not mechanical. Check this box, check that box. Om Jai Jagadisha Hare. It doesn't happen like that. Those things must be there, and then there's the bhakti spirit behind it, and the bhakti spirit behind it, we know the definition. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Krishna is to be pleased. And that's bhakti. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. I'm sorry I went off on this tangent.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for a wonderful class. So just one comment and one question I have. So the comment is like the character, without that is also essential, like samas sarveshu bhuteshu, how we can cultivate without knowing the exemplified character. So character is important. And while I'm reading how Mother Parvati cursed Chitraketu to be a demon in his next life, and their conversation, entire chapter, how they are exhibiting each characters, how he is not retaliate even though he is competent enough to retaliate. And he also, Parvati cursed him, he didn't say anything, and he also addressed Mother Parvati as mother. Yeah, wonderful, like how they are, and how Lord Shiva is teaching etiquette to Mother Parvati. That is also wonderful. Why are you doing that? He is at my level. We both are liberated. Why are you intervening? And those are all characters. We need to learn. I felt like that.
Yeah.
I thought of sharing.
It's not cosmetic. You can't just put it on and take it off like a set of clothes. There's something inside.
And when I go for book distribution, I sell the book, I distribute the books with the same name. Like modern education is not giving the character. Only these books are giving character. Please take this. It will be helpful for you and kids.
That's the right message, and then we have to model the character.
Yeah. But automatically they cultivate bhakti also.
Well, it's the beginning. I mean, it's a beginning. And everyone has to begin somewhere. So book distribution is a good medium for the training in humility and not being judgmental. And people behave and dress and eat and carry on as people that don't have culture. And they're spirit soul, they're a candidate. And so not being judgmental. Genuinely. So that takes purity to live and conduct oneself. Because, we have another model around here and there. And one of the things I like about book distribution is you never know.
Yeah, that is.
It could be this or that. You never know. So now that was a comment. Now your question?
Question is, why Queen Kunti in her prayers emphasizing about you are not envy? Why she need to say that? She can tell all exemplified qualities, you are great and this, that. But why you are not discriminated?
Why not? You know, is there a limit to the good qualities? There's no limit. So why do you want to limit? And she's pointing out something because an embodied soul generally is envious. You're not. You have a body, but you're not the body. You're the supreme. And so you're not envious because worldly people are envious and you're not a worldly person. I think it's just fine.
I just want to understand more from you.
She's not limiting the character to this or that. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, this is regarding Dhritarashtra practicing Ashtanga Yoga.
Regarding what?
Dhritarashtra practicing Ashtanga Yoga.
Yeah.
He left his body
Yeah.
by his own, fighting his own body. With
Right.
Yeah. So what kind of moksha he achieved?
What kind of moksha? What do you think? He did bad stuff. He's not absolved by that bad stuff because he knew Ashtanga Yoga. He went to the Himalayas. He went to Haridwar. Doesn't say where in Haridwar, but he went to Haridwar. That's where he did what he did. So it's the Hari Dwara. It's the Dwara to Hari. Now, supposing he's not yet eligible to attain Vaikuntha, he's responsible for the bad stuff. So I don't know specifically. I could research it, in that section of the Bhagavatam, because it's in Mahabharata, but it's also in the Bhagavatam, what his destination was. Without knowing what our acharyas say, my understanding would be heaven.
Yeah, actually I am perplexed. So Dhritarashtra was inspired by Vidura to leave the kingdom.
Yes.
And per my knowledge, Vidura was pure devotee of Krishna. He was practicing devotional service.
That's right.
So even Vidura was inspiring him.
But for Vidura, Vidura is not Krishna. Krishna can grant anything. Vidura can encourage again and again and again. Vidura encouraged. And his brother, Dhritarashtra, respected, but sometimes couldn't do. And so Vidura understood his brother. So what his encouragement was is free yourself from the bondage of your so many sinful activities in this way. Because otherwise, it's dark. Your next life is dark. So free yourself. So he didn't say, the topmost, because his brother wasn't capable, because of material affinity, strong. And that's one of the messages in Queen Kunti's prayers for sure. Edamana Madakpaman. One becomes mad. So, does that answer your question? Okay.
So, Guru Maharaj, I am comparing this verse with the 11th canto verse, Bhaktir para ishanu bhava viraktir anyataracha.
Yeah.
So, this Notpadayat Yadirathim, is it the beginning stage of awakening of our attraction to Krishna that evolves and results in Bhaktir para ishanu bhava? How do I understand that?
How do you not understand it? I don't understand how you don't understand it.
In the sense, it's a beginning and that is a result. That's how we connect.
I don't see the difficulty. I don't see the difficulty. You see a conflict? What's the conflict?
There's no conflict, but is it the beginning stage this verse is referring to? And continued cultivation of this will result in the natural.
I still don't understand the question, because this verse is a response to the question from chapter 1. And so Sutta is describing occupational duty. And the occupational duty is that which the soul does for the benefit of the one who is being served. It's service unto. So there's service unto the Supreme. And that's the essence. So supposing someone isn't there yet, most of us aren't there yet. So then there's a method, a procedure to get there, and that's the topics of the Supreme, so that affinity for the Supreme that's dormant can awaken. And then the service goes in the direction of that now awakened affinity. So that's it's just a type of sadhana bhakti. So this verse, bhakti parashanubhavo viraktir, the affinity develops, or is a byproduct of that affinity is viraktir anyatra, the slackening of affinity for other things. So I don't see the difficulty of, but if you describe it this way or describe it that way, it's the same thing. Just different ways of describing the same thing. Now, maybe I'm missing your point, but that's my response to what I have understood your question to be. Okay. On the ladies' side?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. Maharaj, you told about an exemplary life. Could you tell practically how it looks like?
How?
An exemplary life looks like?
But what's your question?
So the question, you said that it's not enough just to chant, just to get A in Bhakti Shastri.
There's a procedure, but more elevated stages of bhakti. It's not just do the do's, avoid the don'ts, and the bell rings. It's bhakti. And so the purpose for which we're doing the do's and avoiding the don'ts, that Krishna should be pleased. That's bhakti. It's not mechanical. It's devotional. So we all have to start somewhere, back to that same point. So then ask people in the beginning, chant, take prasadam, attend gatherings like this. Thank you very much. That's the path has begun. And then, is it just do those things? So what else is it? Then it's the consciousness behind those things. The things don't change, but the consciousness needs to change. And that's where the unwanted is more effectively displaced, and the wanted is more effectively awakened and manifest. Is that right? Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Online question towards the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, there are two online questions. One is from Amani Radha Mataji. The question is, the need of soul can be known by hearing or from Prabhupada books, but as a sadhaka, sometimes there is a problem in accepting firmly,
Sometimes there's a problem, what?
a problem in accepting firmly rooted belief.
Accepting what? Okay.
What enables us to understand this from Adav Shraddha?
I'm not clear what the question is, but I think I'll respond to what I think the question is. I'll use myself as an example. Once upon a time, I was a college kid. And I didn't know lots of things. But I wanted to know. So there was an intrinsic, this Adau Shraddha, that's the question. My Adau Shraddha was, there's a higher reality. I don't know, that's number one. I don't know what it is. Number two, I want to know what it is. And not notionally, but I want to know what it is. I want to be connected with that high reality. So with the right association, there's the not right association, and that didn't go anywhere. But where there's the right association, then it started to move to, what that higher reality is. And then the activities, and along with the association, led to chanting and reading Prabhupada's books and associating with devotees and, gradually filling in the I don't know, just something that becomes a little more clear. That's a little bit more of the picture of what that higher reality is. So there's the Adau Shraddha, and then what comes after, according to Rupa Goswami, is Sadhu Sangha. And then when in the association of sadhus, what do? Bhajana Kriya. So there's the sequence starts with preliminary faith, but it's not well defined what that preliminary faith is until the preliminary faith becomes more mature. One of the ways, to say the same thing in different language, one of the ways that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur characterizes the 9 stages of bhakti is there are different labels or nomenclature for stages of faith up to prema bhakti. The preliminary, and then there's different stages of maturing of faith. And then there's a procedure to incrementally develop that preliminary faith. So I'm not sure if I've answered the question, because I'm not sure what the question is. But I've tried.
You have a second question? This is from Amara Didi. When Krishna gives empowerment...
When Krishna gives empowerment...
Yes. When Krishna gives empowerment, is humility part of that empowerment?
No, that humility has something to do with the receiver, not the giver. Supposing somebody doesn't have humility and they get some empowerment, they start to become proud. They have a gift to XYZ. And they're empowered. And they may take credit for that because the humility factor is, so it's on the receiving end. And a wise person understands the gift is from the giver, it's not me or mine. but it's from the giver. And that's a natural kind of humility. Anything else? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.